They kicked me out with my baby. Years later, they couldn't believe my success. The rain in Seattle was relentless that night, a cold, hard sheet that seemed to wash away any last vestige of hope I had left. I stood on the sidewalk, the worn handle of a single, cheap suitcase digging into my palm, my other arm wrapped protectively around my 6-month-old daughter, Lily. The door of my parents' house, the house I'd grown up in, had just closed with a finality that echoed in the empty street. Not a slam, but a soft, deliberate click. It was worse, it was a statement. "We love you, Clara, but this is not our burden to bear." My mother's voice, muffled through the thick oak door, was the last thing I heard. My father, a man of few words and even fewer emotions, had simply stared at the floor, his silence a louder condemnation than any shout. Inside, my sister Elena was probably smugly sipping her herbal tea, grateful to have her embarrassing sister removed from the pristine, magazine-perfect picture of their lives. Elena was the golden child, the doctor, the one who married a lawyer, the one who provided them with perfectly behaved grandchildren. Me. I was the disappointment, the one who dropped out of college, the one who had a baby out of wedlock, the one whose boyfriend Mark had walked out the moment he heard the word pregnancy. I was the stain on the family crest, and now with nowhere else to turn I had been officially erased. I had called them 2 days ago, my voice trembling, asking if Lily and I could stay for just a few weeks until I could get back on my feet. I had been evicted from my tiny apartment. My job at the diner had let me go when I couldn't find childcare. I had nothing, absolutely nothing, and they had said yes, but the tone in my mother's voice was cold, distant. When I arrived, soaking wet, Lily crying from the cold, my mother had taken one look at us and shaken her head. "I'm sorry, Clara, we've thought about this. We can't have a baby in the house, it's too disruptive. Your father's health is fragile and we have our routine." It was a lie. My father was healthier than he'd ever been, playing golf 3 times a week. The routine was the weekly dinner parties they hosted to impress their friends, where they could brag about Elena. A crying baby didn't fit that aesthetic. I looked down at Lily, her tiny face scrunched up in discomfort. She was all I had left. The love I felt for her was a fierce, burning thing, a fire that kept me from collapsing right there on the sidewalk. I had no car. I had $43 in my pocket, a suitcase full of clothes and a diaper bag with just enough supplies for the night. "Okay, baby," I whispered, my voice cracking. "It's just you and me." I walked. I didn't know where I was going, I just walked. The rain soaked through my thin jacket and I used my body to shield Lily as much as I could. I found a bus shelter, one of those glass ones that offered minimal protection from the elements. I sat on the cold bench, pulled Lily close and fed her the last bottle I had. She fell asleep in my arms, her little chest rising and falling, completely trusting that her mother would keep her safe. It was the most terrifying and empowering feeling I had ever experienced. That night, a woman named Mrs. Gable found us. She was a night janitor at a nearby office building, and she saw me through the glass, shivering, holding my baby. She had kind eyes and a weathered face. She didn't ask for my story. She just said, "You can't stay here, come with me." She took us to a women's shelter called The Haven. It was a modest place, a converted church with bunk beds and donated clothes, but to me it was a palace. They gave us a warm meal, a clean bed, and a sense of safety I hadn't felt in months. The next morning I met with a caseworker, a stern but compassionate woman named Brenda. "Clara," she said, looking at my file, "you have no job, no home, no support system. What are your skills?" "I was a waitress," I said, my voice small. "I can type, I'm good with people." Brenda nodded. "We have a program, it's not easy. It's a job training program for single mothers, it's 6 months long. You'll learn a trade and we'll provide childcare, but you have to be dedicated, you have to show up every single day. No excuses." I looked at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully in a donated bassinet. "I'll do it," I said. "I'll do anything." Program was for medical billing and coding. It was dry, technical, and mind-numbingly boring at times, but I threw myself into it with a desperation that surprised even me. Every night after Lily was asleep, I would study by the dim light of a bedside lamp. I memorized ICD-10 codes, CPT codes, and insurance claim forms until my eyes burned. I was determined. I was not going to be a failure. I was not going to let my daughter grow up in a shelter. I was going to give her a life, a real life, the kind of life my family had so callously denied her. The shelter was a microcosm of broken dreams and resilient women. I met Sarah, a former nurse who had lost everything to an abusive husband. I met Maria, a young immigrant who barely spoke English but worked tirelessly as a cleaner to save money for her children's future. They were my sisters, my tribe. We shared our food, our stories, our hopes, and our tears. We were the forgotten ones, the invisible women who society had cast aside. And we were fighting like hell, 6 months later, I graduated at the top of my class. I had earned my certification and had a job offer from a small medical practice on the other side of town. The pay was modest, but it was enough. I found a tiny studio apartment, just one room with a hot plate and a shared bathroom down the hall. But it was ours. The first night in that apartment, I sat on the floor with Lily, eating pizza from a cardboard box, and I wept. I wept for the life I had lost, for the family who had abandoned me, and for the incredible, terrifying, beautiful future that was now mine. The years that followed were a blur of hard work and sacrifice. I was a single mother, a career woman, and a student all rolled into one. I never stopped learning. I took night classes, earned a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration, and then an MBA. I moved up the ladder from coding to billing to managing a department. I was good at it. I had a knack for finding inefficiencies and fixing them, for motivating teams, and for understanding the intricate dance between healthcare providers and insurance companies. I became known as the woman who could turn around a failing medical practice. I was hired as a consultant for clinics that were drowning in red ink. I saved hospitals millions of dollars. I was featured in trade magazines. I was invited to speak at conferences. My name, Clara Dawson, became synonymous with turnaround management in the healthcare industry. I built my own consulting firm, Dawson Healthcare Solutions. I hired other single mothers, other women who had been told they would never amount to anything. I gave them the same chance that Brenda at the shelter had given me. I bought a beautiful house in a quiet suburb. It had a big backyard with a swing set for Lily and a cozy kitchen where we baked cookies on Sundays. I bought a brand new car, a safe one with heated seats and a navigation system. I had money in the bank, a retirement fund, and a portfolio of investments. I had made it. I had clawed my way out of the gutter and built an empire. Lily was thriving. She was a bright, funny, and incredibly kind teenager. She had no memory of the shelter, of the cold bus stop, or of her grandparents' rejection. I had shielded her from that ugliness. She knew my parents existed, of course, but I had never pushed for a relationship. They had made their choice, and I had respected it. I had never called them. They had never called me. On Lily's 16th birthday, she asked me a question I had been dreading. "Mom," she said, her eyes serious, "I know you don't like to talk about it, but why don't we ever see Grandma and Grandpa, or Aunt Elena?" I took a deep breath. I had always believed in honesty with Lily, but I had never known how to explain the depth of that betrayal without sounding bitter. "They weren't there for us when we needed them, Lily," I said, choosing my words carefully. "When you were a baby, they turned us away. We had to find our own way." She was quiet for a moment, processing. "So they're bad people?" "No," I said quickly. "They're not necessarily bad. They made a bad choice, a hurtful choice. People are complicated. They were scared. They were worried about their own lives, but that doesn't make what they did right. I chose to build a life without them. I chose to focus on you and on us." "Do you think they're sorry?" she asked. "I don't know, sweetie," I admitted. "I haven't given them the chance to apologize." Lily looked at me, and I saw a maturity in her eyes that was beyond her years. "Maybe you should, maybe we should." I wanted to say no. I wanted to protect her from the possibility of being rejected again, but I also knew that Lily was my heart, and her heart was too big to hold a grudge. I agreed to write them a letter. It wasn't a letter of supplication. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness. It was an olive branch, an invitation. I wrote to my parents, telling them about my life, about Lily, about my company. I kept it factual, devoid of emotion. I invited them to Lily's high school graduation, which was in 3 months. I gave them the address to my new house, which was now in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. I didn't expect a reply. I didn't even know if I wanted one, but a reply came. It wasn't a letter. It was a phone call from my mother. Her voice, when I answered, was strained, hesitant. "Clara." "Is that really you?" "Yes, Mother," I said, my voice level. "We got your letter," she said. "We were surprised." "Sure you were. Your father and we've been thinking, it's been so many years, we'd like to see you, we'd like to see Lily." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "We're having a graduation party for Lily at the house," I said. "You're welcome to come." "We'll be there," my mother said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "Clara, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for how we treated you." I didn't respond to the apology. I wasn't ready to accept it, not yet. "I'll see you on June 15th, I said, and I hung up. The day of the graduation party arrived, and my house was a hive of activity. The backyard was decorated with fairy lights and white linens. A caterer was setting up a buffet of gourmet food. Lily, dressed in her cap and gown, was radiant. Her friends were there, her teachers and my colleagues from work. It was a celebration of her achievements, but it was also a celebration of my journey. This was the life I had built from nothing. I saw my parents and Elena pull up in their Lexus. They looked the same but older. My mother's hair was now silver and my father walked with a cane. Elena still had that same smug expression, but it seemed more fragile now, less certain. They walked up the driveway, looking at the house, the cars, the flowers. They looked lost. I went to greet them at the door. Mother. Father, Elena, I said, my voice cool. My mother's eyes were wide. She looked at me and then at the house. Clara, this is incredible. I had no idea. You didn't ask, I said simply. Please come in, Lily is eager to meet you. I led them into the backyard. The guests parted, and there under a beautiful arch of white roses stood Lily. She was tall and graceful, her smile bright. She walked over to us, her eyes fixed on her grandparents. Hi, she said. You must be Grandma and Grandpa, I'm Lily. My mother's face crumpled. She reached out and touched Lily's arm as if she were a ghost. You're beautiful, she whispered. You're so beautiful. Lily hugged her. My mother, the woman who had always been so proper, so controlled, burst into tears. She clung to Lily as if she were drowning. My father, tears streaming down his face, patted Lily's back awkwardly. Elena stood to the side, a strange look on her face. It looked like envy. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Lily had gone to bed, I sat in my living room with my parents and my sister. The silence was heavy, awkward. My mother was the first to speak. Clara, I know we don't deserve your forgiveness, she said, her voice trembling. But I need you to understand. When we turned you away, I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was protecting our reputation. I was a coward. I was so concerned about what the neighbours would think, what the country club would think, that I abandoned my own daughter. I abandoned my own grandchild. My father nodded, unable to speak. Elena looked at the floor, her face flushed. And you, I said, turning to Elena. You were always so perfect, so successful. Tell me, what do you think of my life now? Is it acceptable? Does it meet your standards? Elena looked up, and for the first time I saw a crack in her facade. I was jealous of you, Clara, she said, her voice barely a whisper. You were always the one who was free. You were always the one who followed her heart. I was trapped in this perfect little box, doing everything Mom and Dad expected. And when you came back, pregnant and alone, I felt, I don't know, I felt like you had ruined your life and I had done everything right. But you didn't ruin your life, you made it, and I'm still in that box. We sat in silence. I felt a strange sense of peace. I had spent so many years nursing my anger, my resentment, my feeling of injustice. But sitting here, seeing the brokenness in their eyes, the regret, I realized that holding on to that anger was like drinking poison and expecting them to die. I can't give you those years back, I said finally. I can't change what happened. It was hard. It was the hardest thing I have ever been through, but it made me who I am. It made me the mother I am today. It made me the woman I am today. And Lily is the most incredible person I know. She is a testament to the fact that love can survive anything. My mother reached out and took my hand. Can we try? She asked. Can we start over, please? I looked at her, this woman who had once been a stranger to me. I thought of the shelter, the cold bus stop, the rain. I thought of all the nights I had cried myself to sleep, wondering if I would ever be good enough. And then I thought of Lily, of her smile, of the beautiful life we had built together. I can't promise that I'll forget, I said, but I'm willing to try, for Lily, and for me. I hugged my mother. It was a fragile, tentative hug, but it was a start. My father joined us, and then, awkwardly, Elena. We were a family, broken and imperfect, but together. Years later, I was invited to speak at a gala for the same women's shelter that had saved my life, the Haven. I was the keynote speaker. I stood on the stage looking out at a room full of women, many of them like me, clutching their Barbies, their eyes full of fear and determination. I told them my story. I told them about the rain, the cold, the shelter, and the coding program. I told them about the sleepless nights and the tears. And I told them about the success. Success is not just about money or power or fame, I said. Success is about believing in yourself when no one else does. It's about getting back up every single time life knocks you down. It's about loving someone so fiercely that their survival becomes your motivation. I looked at my family sitting in the front row, my parents, Elena and Lily. They were all there, their faces beaming with pride. I told them about the family who had rejected me. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told them the harsh truth, but I also told them about the phone call, the apology, and the process of rebuilding. People who kicked me out with my baby couldn't believe my success, I said. They never could have imagined that the girl they left on the street would become a business owner, a philanthropist, a mother and a daughter again. But I didn't do it to prove them wrong. I did it for her. I pointed to Lily, who was now in her late 20s, a successful architect. I did it for her and I did it for me. And most importantly, I did it for every single one of you in this room, because if I can do it, so can you. The applause was deafening. As I walked off the stage, I was surrounded by women, their eyes shining with hope. They asked me questions, they told me their stories, they hugged me. It was then that I realized the true measure of my success. It wasn't the house, the car, or the business, it was the hope I could give to someone else. It was the proof that a broken past does not have to define a broken future. My mother came up to me, a tissue in her hand. "I'm so proud of you, Clara," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry for everything. I hope you know how much I love you." "I know, Mom," I said, hugging her. "I know." Later that night, back at my house, we sat around the dinner table. Elena was laughing with Lily about something silly. My father was telling a terrible joke. My mother was carving a roast. It was a scene of domestic bliss, the kind of picture-perfect family dinner I had always longed for. It had taken a lifetime to get here. It had taken tears, heartache, and a resilience I never knew I possessed. But here we were, a family, not perfect but united. As I looked around the table, I realized that my success wasn't just about the money. It was about the love. It was about the forgiveness. It was about the fact that I had never given up, not on myself and not on my daughter. The world is full of people who will tell you that you can't. They will kick you out, they will dismiss you, they will break you. But it is your job to prove them wrong. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with unwavering determination. You must build your life brick by brick, even when you're starting from nothing. You must love fiercely and forgive generously. You must be the architect of your own destiny. I had been kicked out with my baby, but I had rebuilt my life from the ashes. And in doing so, I had discovered that the greatest success of all is not in the applause or the accolades. It is in the quiet moments of joy, the laughter around a dinner table, and the knowing smile of a daughter who knows she is loved. That is my story. It is not a story of revenge, it is a story of redemption.